And what you see here before you is a group of pikemen. Known as such, not unlike musketeers, known for their main weapon, the muskets, our pikemen are known for their main weapon, the pike. It is a 12-foot-long ash pole with a nice sharp pointy tip at the end, made out of metal. Now, we also have our token musketeer standing over by the right-hand side. Please step forward, musketeer. Take a close look at our musketeer. You'll notice a piece of equipment that he doesn't have. That piece of equipment is the bayonet. And it hasn't been invented yet. It won't be around for almost another 100 years. So our musketeer does not have a bayonet. The pikeman, he is our bayonet. All 230 angry armored pounds of bayonet with no other job. Now the musketeers and the pikemen, they work together on the battlefield. The musketeer's job is to get the pikemen to close contact with the enemy so that they can have it out and hopefully cause some shish kebabs. In turn, the pikemen guard the musketeer against armored horse, cavalry, knights on horseback, because against horses, the musketeer is almost defenseless. And hopefully, he's that good enough a shot that he can at least put a little bit of a fight. Now, the way our pikemen are standing here right now, they're standing at the order position. They're just standing back, relaxing, waiting for me to yell something at them. So I want them to actually be able to maneuver around or do something. Say, pikemen, advance your pike! They raise or advance their pike up to about waist level. As you may have noticed, it's a 3-step process. Almost every single drill step that there is has 3 smaller steps within it. The drill itself is fairly simple. There's only about 12 steps to the full drill from start to finish, not including those little steps in between. It has to be fairly simple, because these gentlemen can neither read nor write. If they can't do it well, so they have to learn out of a picture book. They need to be able to page through that picture book and learn and see. However, by the end of their training, which usually lasts close to a month, slightly longer than a musketeer, by the end of their training, thanks to that picture book, they are now fairly proficient. They know what they're doing, and they can even color inside the lines. Now, I said it may take up to a month to train this pike. To train a musketeer, I can pluck that individual out of a farmer's field and train him how to do his job, at least with a basic level of proficiency, in almost 2 weeks. Push him right onto the battlefield. It takes considerably longer for the pikeman, not because the drill is harder, but because the weapon is that much more difficult to master. It may take up to that long just because of the sheer physical strength needed to do his job. You'll notice all of our pikemen are wearing armor and a helmet, carrying a sword. On top of that, on the march, they would have a satchel with blankets, additional clothing, food, a canteen full of water, any additional arms or equipment they need to carry. These poor fellows may be carrying anywhere up to about 70 pounds while they're marching. Still, they need to be able to carry that weight, march as far as I tell them, up to 10-15 miles in a day, and still be able to fight a battle at the end of it. So you can imagine, if you will, the sheer amount of physical strength needed to do their job. You also notice they're all large, stout fellows. Now, with the way they have their pike oriented, they're at advance. They can walk around a little bit, they can maneuver some, but there's a very severe disadvantage. They can't see the top of their pike point. Even if they turn their heads, they're wearing helmets, which they can't lean their head all the way back to see the tip. You'll also notice all the fine, lovely trees we have here about Her Majesty's Shire that she has so graciously given us for shade. All of them have low-lying branches. If these poor fellows were to try and walk around with their pikes how they are right now, they'd be running into things, get caught in trees. I have a big jumbled mess of armor and pikemen all lumped together with their pikes stuck in a tree and trying to unroll them from their ball of armoredness. So if they need to be walking around the town streets, going through an entryway like the gate, moving through any sort of a portal, I would tell them, pikemen, port your pike! They can now maneuver around, they can see their end, they're not skewering any tree branches, taking out any squirrels for lunch out of the trees, and they can maneuver fairly easily. As well, both hands are on the pike, gives them some extra stability. As these are slightly shorter pikes. The average is about 16 to 20 feet long. Maybe up to close to a 20-pound pike. You're going to need both hands to maneuver. That's that size of a weapon and weight. Now they can maneuver around, they can get from one point to another. But this is not even yet a fighting position. If I want them to actually be able to fight the enemy, I will tell them, pikemen, charge your pike! The left hand comes from the waist, up underneath the chin. The left elbow gets tucked down low, as close as it can get to their breast and back plate. There are two reasons for this. One, where the pike goes, the pikeman can now see and sight down his pike, try and fight his enemy pikemen, look for the weak spots on their armor. In the same turn, this hand is now helping to protect that pikeman's face and throat. You'll notice he doesn't have any armor right below his helmet. His collar line is completely exposed, as well as his underarm. The sacrifice here is that they've cut down about 10 to 15 pounds of armor so that they may be able to go an extra few miles on the march. The downside to it is that they're not as well protected now. I'd rather have them be able to march an extra 5 miles and get to a battlefield or outrun the enemy than to be carrying that extra weight and not be able to fight as effectively, or be that much more tired when they get to the battle. As far as for training's sake goes, once they've found a point, they're within range of their enemy pikemen. The two blocks are coming close to each other. They've found the point where they want to be, aiming down their pike. I will say, "Lay on!" Yeah! And they will give their most fearsome battle cry, hopefully causing a shish kebab on the other end. Now, as they do this, they're not jamming it in there and leaving it. They're bringing it back, just in case. Just keep moving on through the extra rows of pikemen as they continue to fight. Rudolph, face your body slightly to the left. You'll also notice that our pikeman's rear arm is all the way back. Notice how much reach he now has. The full length of his arm. That's to get into even closer position and deliver as much force as possible with that pike point. His hand is on the butt of the pike. He's pushing it through, almost like using a shish kebab skewer. Makes it more. Now this is all fine, well, and good against enemy pikemen or musketeers. This method is fairly slow. Our musketeers following along, but not firing as he fires. Our pikemen are moving at a very controlled, slow step. Now this isn't the only position that they can hold their pike. Pikemen, advance your pike! Musketeer, if you could go close yourself over by the fire. If I need them to move quickly to sweep our pesky musketeer all by himself off of the battlefield, the pikeman can act like a broom. Sweep the battlefield right quickly. I say, pikemen, by the general advance, charge your pike! Down at waist level, easy to control. And all I have to say is, pikemen, by your right hand wheel, prepare to march! March on! They can move quickly. March to the fore! And our musketeer runs away in terror. Prepare to stand! Stand! Now it's quick, but not a very good way to fight. If I want them to actually be more controlled, if I have a larger block of musketeers, advance your pike! Fix your body by the right hand about. I will tell them what's known as the switch step. Very controlled, deliberate step, keeping everyone in the same row, moving very slowly, deliberately, and terrifyingly in one big armored juggernaut across the battlefield, while the musketeers are reloading and firing right next to them. I will say, pikemen, charge your pike! Pikemen, at the switch step, prepare to march! March on!
Say, George, say, George, say, George, say, George,
in order to keep them all in step.
George, say, George.
You'll notice the feet don't completely together, so they can brace themselves. Prepare to stand! Stand! Advance your pike! By your left hand wheel, prepare to march. As you were. By your right hand wheel, prepare to march. March on! Prepare to stand! Stand! Face your body by the left hand. Charge pike! Don't hit each other. They're very well disciplined and they do exactly as they're told. Unfortunately, sometimes they do exactly as they're told and end up knocking each other silly, which is why they're wearing helmets. As you'll notice, this is how it would be, stacked in rows. 10 pikemen in a row, another row of 10 behind them, another row of 10 behind that. Now, there's an advantage to this weapon. I can draw whatever bladed object I have. I may be able to work my way in there underneath this first gentleman and knock his pike out of the way. I'm in range of the second rank. If he doesn't finish me off, I manage to get into this poor fellow and take him out. He's now dead. The third rank, he brings his pike down, and he will gladly finish me off. Also, you may find smaller gentlemen such as myself working their way up underneath the pike. Another reason for that fellow in the second rank being down there, I tried to work my way in. I now become a shish kebab. Advance your pike! Face your body by the right hand! Now that works all well and good against other infantry, other pikemen, musketeers. That will not save us from cavalry. The cavalry is the infantry's worst nightmare. That's armored gentlemen on top of horseback. Now I ask you, this becomes a simple process of what costs less. Our poor friendly pikeman here, with some rusty armor, who's taken about a month's worth of training. Or a fully armored horse with an armored rider who needs to be trained and taught special skills with a sword. Which individual costs less? A pikeman. Should he be crushed by an armored horse, or should he die on the battlefield? I can make another one that looks just like him in the course of about a month. I can pluck him out of another farmer's field, start training him up, build up his physical strength. I can probably even hammer most of the dents out of his armor and throw it on another fellow about the same size. So when we're trying to protect ourselves from cavalry, trying to protect the musketeers as well, pikemen, order your pikes! I will tell them, pikemen, charge for horse! Now what you've seen just happen here is our musketeer has moved back in behind the pikemen. He's now shooting over top of their heads, trying to fend off whatever enemy. Our pikemen have taken their pike butts, planted them on the ground, are bracing it with their foot. The right leg stays straight, the left leg gets bent. They come down and rest most of their weight on their thigh, with their elbow. You'll also notice all the other hands are on their swords. Right now, they're braced that they can take a decent impact. Will it survive the force of a 2,000-pound animal with a 300-pound armored rider? No. But it will be enough force to deliver that if the horse does run into a pike, it'll at least cause some penetration, cause some damage. Now, fortunately, often the horse is smarter than the rider. The horse will usually stop and not go charging toward our armored porcupine. However, in the event that the horse is not smarter than the rider, they will then be finished off by the pike. If the horse does happen to be smarter than the rider and stops short, that poor 300-pound armored rider now has momentum working against him. The horse stops. That poor fellow might not, in which case he'll probably be vaulted over our pike block here, and our musketeer will do what he does best and gladly finish him off. Now, a horse runs into that pike. It's not going to last very long. It's going to splinter. It's going to break. Our pikeman's then going to revert to his second weapon, his second line of defense. I will say, pikemen, quit your pikes and draw a sword! They will then draw their swords and continue the fight as best they can until they can get fresh pikes, which are fairly easy to do. Resheath the swords. Pikemen, handle your pikes. You have been an excellent audience. If you have any questions, our pikemen are now safe. They are relatively unloaded. I ask that you do not feed the pikemen, however, or try not to make any sudden movements with shiny objects as they become distracted. They are trained, however, they are not tame. Advance your pike! You've been a wonderful audience. Gentlemen, take a bow. Very good. Advance your pike! Order your pike! Feel free to ask us questions, pick our brains. We're also doing a musket demonstration at 4:30.